What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Get a Load of This. I am super excited to have Chris Jolly on. If you don't know, you're going to know very soon. And he seems like he's just blowing up feeds everywhere. I see him kind of every morning. I'll hop on LinkedIn or do some stuff, and I'm getting flooded with stuff. Chris runs a podcast, Coffee with the Freight Coach, right?
Yes, sir. Coffee with the Freight Coach, iTunes and Spotify.
I love it. Yeah. And I follow it on Spotify, but what's cool about LinkedIn and the social media aspect, I actually get to see the video feed, which is always fun too, which if you guys are following on the video feed, you'll notice this big neon sign in the background, and it's badass, and it's not a bar. He might have a bar, but it's not a bar, but it's basically just like spotlighting a bunch of knowledge. So I am super stoked to have him with us. Give it up for our special guest, Chris. Chris, let's tell the folks a little bit about what you do and your mission.
Yeah, absolutely. Cameron, thank you so much for having me come out here today. Honestly, man, I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to come out and speak to your audience and everything else. And my name is Chris Jolly, AKA the Freight Coach. I chose the Freight Coach because when I went into business for myself, Cameron, I didn't want to call myself the CEO of a laptop. I wanted, like a background. I've been in the industry for 15 years. I started out loading trucks in college. I did that for probably 4 years. And then I got into brokerage, and I was a broker for about a decade. And I just knew that when I went into business for myself, I needed to find a way to stand out, because when you go to conferences, when you do any of that stuff, I'm one of 10,000 at those events. And I'm like, what can I do to stand out? And, back to, I didn't want to call myself the CEO of a laptop. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to be teaching people about freight. I'm more coaching them. And I'm like the Freight Coach. And that's just what by a stroke of dumb luck, that's how I landed on that name. And that's since what this has all evolved into. So I specialize in sales and operations training for freight brokers and trucking companies alike. And, honestly, it's just teaching the realities of the industry, what they're going to be going out when they're building their book of business or I'm not like a leadership coach. I'm not going to work with founders on how to, if I'm going to scale from 50 trucks to 100 trucks. I don't have that experience, but my experience level lies in business development, lead generation, and then execution on the operations side. That's where my specialty lies. And that's where I want to work with those frontline workers, because a lot of them, Cameron, what they're missing out on is they're missing a process to follow. There's a lot of, throwing darts against the wall and seeing what sticks. And you need to refine your approach. And because it's like a lot of the trucking companies, I didn't really take this approach until I was brokering heavy haul freight. That's where I really learned the power of the niche, open deck and heavy haul. If I just broker freight tomorrow, man, it's the only stuff I'm going after, because the carriers that I worked with were very refined. They knew exactly what they needed. They knew the lanes that they were going to run, and they knew exactly where they were going to be at any given moment. And I'm like, this is the kind of people I need to work with. And, early on in my career, I did food and beverage. So I did everything refrigerated, everything, going into the big box retail distribution centers. That's all I did. So it was we had to follow a process in that. We had to do the same thing, because if you're going to move 35 loads from Charlotte, North Carolina to Chicago in a day, you can't be fighting against each other. You have to be working in unison. You have to have a certain way of doing it. So, and it goes all the way back down to like the load logs of if you're a broker and you're talking to a driver, load logs needed to look uniform, everything did. And that's just what a lot of what I do now when I'm working directly with my clients is it's a lot of let's identify where the process needs to be implemented. And now let's tailor it to the individual. There's not a one size fits all for training, Cameron. Everybody retains information at their own pace. And I need to find that. That's why you work with me. I need to find the way that works for your team. So leadership can focus on leadership. You talk to a lot, 95% of trucking is small business. Leadership sometimes is still running their own book of business, and they want to train and grow, but they've never really had a quality resource. And I don't do this for every industry. I do this for freight because this is where my experience is. I know trucking. I don't know finance. I don't know anything else. I know trucking. I know how to execute in this industry. And that's why I stay in this industry.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think you hit on a couple things as far as honestly, a lot of truck company owners or freight brokers, they're not business owners or they don't have that mindset of like the analytical side and developing these processes and
Mhm.
SOS and standards of procedures, making them much more efficient, which in turn deliver a much better experience and allow them to be profitable with less employees. And it's stuff as a business owner on the sales end myself that I got to do. But before we go way down a rabbit hole on
Yeah.
that stuff, because if that didn't get people excited, I don't know what would. There's probably a few things, but that was exciting to me. I know that you have a background just from listening to you. Your family is in trucking and transportation.
Yes.
Is that what led you to the transportation industry to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, so I like my great grandparents started a trucking company in Iowa back in the 30s, and that's how that
Right on.
that's what got my dad involved in the industry. And my dad was an owner op for 35 years, and I'm from northern Wisconsin originally, and he ran, ironically, he ran the same pretty much region the entirety of his career. He went from Minneapolis to the Bronx, and that's all he did. He
Perfect.
loved running that. He did that every single week for pretty much the entirety of his career. And I got in, like, I initially wanted to be a driver, Cameron, but like my dad talked me out. He didn't want that for me because, the life is, this is why I respect truck drivers so much because it's not easy at all. And, it's one of those things that I think every parent looks at their child and they're like, I don't do what I did, do more than what I did. And that was his
Always.
big thing. Um, and I knew that I wanted to work in truck. Like I don't know that right away. I got led back into trucking because like when I first went to college, I went to be a history teacher. Like I'm a big history buff. I love learning about history. Well, what's written about history, anyways.
Yeah.
And
What's given to
I,
us.
but I lasted a semester. I'm like, this isn't for me. I don't want to do this at all. And so like that's when I went back home. I honestly, I worked for a couple of years. I didn't go back to school. I didn't take the traditional college route by any means. I worked and I got back into school. Um, and just honestly, I just wanted to go into business. I didn't know why, but something was calling me in there. I took the tech school route, man. Like I had to put myself through college, and that was the only affordable route that I could take right away. Even though I still took out student loans like an idiot, because beer money is very appealing when you're 20 years old.
Yep.
And yeah, so like I got back in, I went to school full time, and then I worked at night loading trucks at a distribution center for a major home improvement store in the Midwest. And I did that for like 4 years. And then when I moved out west, so like my older brother lived in Reno, Nevada, and I went out to visit one summer of college, and I'm like, I got to move out here. This isn't cornfields of Wisconsin. I got to need a little
A little
change.
more exciting.
Yeah. And like I knew that I was like, all right, I want to get out there and I wanted to work in sales. I didn't know in what industry. I just knew wanted to work in sales. And my brother-in-law's brother, or excuse me, my brother's brother-in-law, excuse me, he had lived out in Reno for a long time and I had known him. So I'd reached out to him. I'm like, hey, I kind of want to work in trucking and I'm going to be moving out there, and I want to work in sales. And his college roommate was a branch manager for the first freight brokerage I got hired at. So that's kind of how I got started in the industry. And I started out in
Awesome.
carrier sales. So
Hey, I respect sales. I mean, I've been in sales since I was 20 years old. I think it gets a bad rap, but because I think a lot of people default to sales if they can't get a job or something elsewhere. It's like, what can I do?
yeah,
Anybody will take you in sales, but to be good at what you do and like following and just, I don't know you at that level, but I know you're successful just based on what I've seen, and work ethic and branding is huge. You got the Freight Coach brand that differentiates you. It stands you out from the competition. Is like you talked about, how do I stand out from 10,000 of the same people that are all saying the same thing?
yeah,
And hey, I'm going to help you do this, make you more money, save you money. It's all the same thing, right? Everyone thinks they're unique at a certain point, and some people are, if you work and educate yourself and you
yeah.
put in the work to differentiate yourself. Like I do higher education. I just received a star designation from Great West Casualty. So I own and
Nice.
operate Valley Trucking Insurance, as the listeners know. That's who
Yeah.
drives this podcast, but it's a specialist in transportation and risk. So
Mhm.
I've done massive amounts of education, essentially like a college degree, if you will, but on trucking insurance, right? To
Yeah.
separate myself, my team does it, my salespeople do it. I mean, that's how we differentiate ourselves. We're better than the rest, and we know more, and we know what the day-to-day looks like. We understand what a trucker trailer is. You'd be amazed at some of the horror stories I hear of people
Uh,
like just that run into an insurance, but that's not what this is about because that'll put everyone to sleep. But so I think now, where are you at now? Are you still in Reno, or I
no,
think you're
I'm
in
in
Arizona, right?
Arizona. I moved down to Phoenix
Okay, yeah.
in 2019.
Awesome. Phoenix is cool. And I won't be there in the summer, but I will come visit you in like the winter
Yes,
months at some point. So
that's perfect.
yeah, I'm from Northwest, man. My blood's
I
not that,
know
it's
the
too thick.
sun scares you guys up in the Pacific Northwest.
It does a little bit. It does. So now one of the questions I love asking, and I guess
Mhm.
it's probably written on the wall behind you, but what would your tag name be?
Well, it is the freight coach.
See, there you go.
Yeah,
So
it
love
yeah,
it.
that was the thing that, again, like, it was just stroke of dumb luck that's what I just didn't want to. I feel like so many people give themselves, and like, I'm all about it. Like, hey, if you want to be the CEO, tell yourself that you're a CEO. I
Just
get that.
make up a title.
But I also think that now those things are earned. Like, just because it's my company, it's my name, I'm the one who gets sued if something goes wrong. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean I earned the right to call myself the CEO yet.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'll ever call myself a CEO. I don't like titles personally. That never really meant anything to me as a sales rep or a carrier rep or anything. Like, yeah, it was cool to see, senior carrier sales rep, or, senior customer service or senior customer sales rep. It looked cool on the title, but like, it didn't prove anything. It didn't mean I was good at my job, you
No.
know?
No, but there's very much so a mindset, and you're obviously just, I guess, in a different realm. You are CEO of what you do. You own your brand. You're a champion for sales. You're a champion for the trucking industry, which is the only reason I reached out to have you on here. Because our whole purpose, like yours, is to just bring value, share real life
Yeah.
experience, people that are actually making a change, progression. I know one of your recent episodes I listened to was autonomous trucks, right? It's
Yeah.
coming, but you also point out, which addresses, people are just fearful of change anyway. That's
Yeah.
natural. But the airline industry has been autonomous forever, right? And it's one of the safest, minus there's some blips in the news lately and some horrible things that have happened, but
Yeah.
it's rare, right? It's super rare. And there's still pilots in the seats. You still
Yeah,
need people in the
absolutely.
truck. So
I think that, I caught some shit for that episode
you
because,
did.
yeah. And it was because, they're like, oh, you're trying to replace the driver. And I'm like, I mean, okay, I don't think I ever once said in that entire episode that we need to replace the driver. I think that people need to be more, it's not the autonomous truck itself that I'm a fan of per se. It's the technology that improves safety that
Right.
I'm a fan of. And that's what people need to realize is machines make it safer, where you're, looking at your phone when you shouldn't be. And guess what? Somebody slams on their brakes. A family of four slams on their brakes in front of you. The probability of having a safer truck is that it will automatically engage those brakes. Yes, I know that some of them go too hard or whatever, but the fact of the matter is this technology will eventually save lives. Hell, might be your family of four in that vehicle,
You
and
never
you're
know.
going to want that stuff. So again, for me, I don't want to replace drivers. You're never going to replace a truck driver, in my opinion. It doesn't matter if it's an autonomous, electric, whatever you want to call it. It's never going to replace the American truck driver,
No.
because just like the pilots, there's going to be a role for you. It might not be the traditional sense of when you're cruising down the freeway. Maybe, you know what? You're more focused on how the truck's operating, identifying potential problems with the engine. Your responsibilities will look a little bit different. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's going to happen whether we want it to or not. It's going to happen. But how can we look at the autonomous truck and say what technology could be implemented to the traditional driver to improve their safety? You're in insurance. How many of your clients out there, or how many of the people listening to this podcast, are sick and tired of their premiums being raised up?
Well, a
Or
lot.
those,
That's why they come to us. But no,
yeah,
that's a huge expense. That's a huge item on the expense line. And so when we focus, like you're trying to bring value in different ways. And like when we talk, um, you get it every now and then. But like if you called me and said, Cam, I've got 3 trucks. Here's the drivers. Here's my like data sheet or Excel
yeah,
list of all these things I want to quote. I'm not going to give you a quote. I would actually tell you no, because what good is that doing? I don't know anything about you. I don't know what your goals are. I don't know where you're heading. I don't know what your plan is for the future. Are you trying to grow this from, like you said, 5 to 50 trucks? Do you want to
Yeah.
stay 3? Do you want to just be an owner operator? I need to know what you do so I can actually advise you, and plus hook you into the different systems that we've got. We partner with, FMCSA for DOT. Like there's a bunch of things that we do outside of insurance that is appealing, right? That's why people work with
Yeah.
us. But I can't do that on here, give you a quote in 15 minutes, give me your truck, I'm going to spit out a number. That does nobody any good. And then they bitch when they have an accident, the rate goes up. But we're working on a quarterly basis with deep dive tools that technology actually enables us to do, where I can drill down on, hey, you got problems in these states and these regions, you're actually hitting bottlenecks here, but your out of service is skyrocketing with these 4 trucks or these drivers in this region. What is going on?
Yeah.
Or those drivers need to be worked with, right? We need to train them because they're causing a significant impact to your safety score, right? And like brokers look at that stuff, right?
Hmm.
They're going to look
Absolutely.
at the safety score. They're going to look at what your, I guess your like perception of the world is, in far as, insurance goes, freight brokers go. I know that cargo limits play a factor. You mentioned heavy haul. If you have $100,000 in coverage, you're not going to get preferred or priority on any load, because they know on average, like if you had to pick this load up, they're not going to be able to get the cargo coverage quick enough. But like my clients that do it, we're making sure we're well above, and it's like, hey, you got 250 or 500,000 or whatever with a rider that'll extend us up to 750, depending on what
Yeah.
they're hauling. I mean, obviously it's based on the situation, but that's where we fall. But let's dive into what you do and bring value to, because I want to feature and spotlight you. I think that what you provide to the industry, to the trucking and the freight brokers and everything, is phenomenal. I think the amount of content you put out just organically, super valuable. People just consumed it and implemented and took action, and they can really learn a lot just by that, but then actually engaging with you and what you provide. So let's start with, somebody wants to connect, what does that look like? What's the process you take? And then let's walk through a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of when I'm working, same with you, Cam. I vet even my own prospects because I want to ensure that they actually want to change. I want to ensure that, because like, again, if I'm going to come in there as an outsider, I need your buy-in, because your team, change always brings pushback. It's inevitable, but I need their support. I need to ensure that they're fully on board with the direction that we're going to take, because and I tell everybody, like, this is why I don't work off of contracts, because my style isn't for everybody, because I'm not there to be your team's best friend. I'm there to improve your organization. I'm there to take you to the levels that you told me in the prospecting call that you wanted to go from 20 million to 50 million. Well, what you're doing, what got you to 20 isn't going to get you to 50. So it's like, for me, I need that buy-in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out, like, what are they really looking for? And then it's like, what can we automate from a technology standpoint? Because a lot of people's answers are, I need to hire more sales reps. Not necessarily. We need to look at your process first. Again, this is why I'm so big on processes, because if we're wasting 20 to 30% of our day by doing monotonous tasks that can be automated, we need to look into that. As a broker, 90% of my job should be automated. The only thing I should be doing is having conversations with my shippers and my carriers to improve relationships with them, because this will always be a people business. That's why I love this industry so much. It's salt of the earth, man. It's just like my relatives. They work their ass off. They want to provide for their families. I want to bring you the best tools. And that's what came out there, not only from my coaching and consulting, but with my content. I want a platform that people can come to and actually receive education that they can implement today and see a difference in their business, and not think that somebody's trying to sell them something or take advantage of them. And I want to have that resource where people can actually, and then for the driver community that's out there that feels unheard, that are afraid to speak up out of fear of retribution from some of these large enterprise brokers and and shippers alike. I want them to have a safe space where they can come in and they know that I'm not just going to be that dickhead broker that runs them through the gauntlet that they normally went with. Because admittedly, Cam, I talk about this on my content, I was that shithead broker for the early part of my career. I tried all that bullshit, but it didn't work out. I had those moments that changed the trajectory of my career where I had to change pace. Otherwise, I wouldn't make it as a freight broker anymore. And when I stopped being sales Chris, or when I stopped being that shyster broker that all of your driver clients hate, it's amazing how much my book of business improved. My customer relationships improved, and my carrier relationships improved, because I took an approach of this. What do you need to run this lane profitably? Is that going to align with my customer? What freight do you like to haul? What region do you want to stay in? What days of the week are you available? What's your business goals? How can I take you from 4 trucks to 8 trucks? Because if I work with the company long enough and they start to expand their fleet, guess what? I get first crack at all of those trucks. Guess who doesn't?
100%.
My fucking competition.
Yep.
And that's the way that you need to look at this.
Yep.
It's always easier said than done. I'm not going to sit up here on, some, golden platter and be like, oh, just follow this. This is the best way. It takes a lot of work to get there, because you're going to be intoxicated by fluctuating freight markets and making a little bit extra money. But now, as a business owner, I need to focus on how do I make money for the next 12 months, not the next 12 minutes. And when you're a sales rep, that's generally all you're focused on. That's why you're not making the changes to build sustainable partnerships with your carriers, is because you think that, fuck it, I'm going to roll the dice. In a couple of weeks, I might get a cheaper rate. I make a little bit more money. I get it. I love making money. I'm a capitalist at heart, but I believe in responsible capitalism, because as a broker, I am nothing without that truck. I am nothing. My technology that I like, which is great, I'm a massive fan of, my technology means shit if my drivers don't show up.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I love kind of how you pointed in that direction, and something that the people don't even realize is from an insurance standpoint, because that's where my expertise lies. But when we look at accounts that jump significantly from 1 truck to 5, 5 to 12, 10 to 20, do they have even the capacity to take on those trucks, and do they have sustainable work for it? I also think in this market, people are jumping in the spot market or doing all those different things because there's quick gains and like short term. I think the value is in building that relationship with the people you want to work with long term right now, because the lanes are open for people to do that. With so much turmoil and wishy-washiness and people are just kind of running to the money, now's the time to anchor in, hunker down, build that relationship with broker, whatever companies you want to work with long term. I think it'll pay dividends for years and years and years to come, like you're talking about. It's not an immediate return, right? That's for a truck driving or truck company. But
the long-standing trucking operations that are out there know this, and that's what they do every single day.
Yeah.
Like you like, and that's the thing, is it's like, if you look at some of these mega carriers, if you go back to the very, very beginning, guess what they did? One thing very well. And then they applied that to a second thing, and then a third thing. And that's where they evolved out into. And not everybody out there wants to, like, I know a lot of drivers, like, they just want to drive for themselves. That was my dad. My dad had, at one point, he got up to like 6 trucks, but he had one get totaled out and one get abandoned within like a 30 or 45 day time period. So he said, fuck it. He sold everything. He's like, it's easier just to run for myself.
Yep. It's 6 headaches if you're not prepared, right? It really is. And they don't care. I take that back. There are people that care, and there are people that care as much as you care, and as much as you invest into your culture and your processes and your standards. And like, they see the owners, right? If you're just a truck driver that wants to expand out of sheer greed and just make more money off other people's truck, then you're not going to run a great business, right? You're not going to be profitable. Your DOT, your out of service is going to go through. There's a bunch of things that snowball downhill for you. Insurance costs being one, because you'll go from 10, 15,000 as a truck, and then next thing you know, you're paying 25, 30,000 per truck, all because of a year span and like, a sequence of 4 or 5 bad interactions. And that's the call I get. And if they're not willing, I love how you point this out, if they're not willing to help themselves or do the work, like I do a coaching call, quarterly meetings, like provide reports. And it's like, we point out all the obvious things to work on. They may not be so to some, but and we try to help them as best we can. But if they don't actually put the work in and hold people accountable, it doesn't matter what we're saying. It's not going to help them, right? They can't just wish it so,
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's what I again, like, that's one of the main driving forces behind a lot of the content that I put out there, is I want to put best practices out there for people to follow, because this industry literally is everything to me. Like, absolutely everything. Since the first breath I took, I've been around trucking. and I know what people go through. I know that this industry is littered with hardworking men and women who are just trying to live the American dream. And that's
Yeah.
all they want to do. They want to work hard and they want to provide for their families. So instead of, the internet is the greatest gift, but it's the biggest fucking curse out there, as you know, because like, dude, you probably see this in your space too with insurance agents. I'm sure there's a bunch of insurance agents who get a bad rap out there, who take advantage of people. They inflate their premiums and everything else to make a quick buck off of it. And it sets people up for failure.
Yeah.
But that's not everybody. And again, I only, it's just like, dude, I could go, my following could probably 10x if I would talk about why drivers suck or why brokers suck and everything else. I could probably dominate it even more, but that doesn't benefit anybody.
No.
What benefits people is teaching best practices at the desk level, talking to drivers and letting them know, hey, if brokers aren't providing X, Y, or Z, they don't have the actual freight. This is why, because I've worked with some of the largest shippers in North America. Never was I ever not provided with a PO number. All right. Never did I not know if that shipper paid attention or not. Granted, there are shippers out there that don't pay attention. That is a real thing. But if the ones that did know, I knew what the rate was. All right. I knew truck order not used. I knew all of that stuff. And if your broker partners out there can't answer basic level questions, they don't have the freight, or that's not somebody who I'd want to work with.
Yeah. I think there's training too on the drivers as well, right? When they receive or go to pick up a load and review the bill of lading. And if something doesn't look right, or if from my standpoint, mine's more legal and it's boring from the aspect of trying to protect the company and protect their assets and make sure they don't lose their ass in a claim or a lawsuit or something. But simple things of like, okay, the standard is 100,000 on cargo. Like that shit was like 50 years ago. I'm telling you, it hasn't changed. But what is the cost of goods done? It's gone up. Reasonably, you're going to think, okay, mixed load, dry freight, could it be worth over 100? Easily. Absolutely easily. It could be 250,000. And they get that bill of lading and they see on there 250,000. What the truck company doesn't realize is once they accept that, once they take that load, they're on the hook for 250,000. Insurance will pay 100, but guess who's coming after the rest of that?
Yeah.
Right. And guess who has to pay it? Now, you got assets, you can liquidate a truck in today's market. Okay, I'll pay it. Now you're down a truck. I mean, there's a bunch. So anyways.
No, I'm right there with you, man. Cause I think that, and that's one thing that's a big misconception that's out there, is they think that, say the freight is $250,000. And if the broker has 100 and they have 100, they think that there's 200 covered. No. It's the actual person who's hauling the freight that's liable for the load. As a broker, it's not required by law to have cargo insurance, but if you're a broker listening to this, get cargo insurance, because no real shipper will work with you without it. But again, it's like, dude, like I learned that in the heavy haul space, because it's like, dude, we were at $250,000 in cargo coverage as a broker at that time, but we're like, no, this isn't going to cut it, because we want to really expand out. So we carried $500,000 with what did you call it earlier? Was it a multiplier up to $1 million?
So you can get like an aggregate or like an exception based on, so like for my companies, if I'm working with a trucking company X and they're working with you, for example, hey, we've got this contract that calls and hauls for 650 or 750,000 in value, based on this many trips per average, and we know we're going to do this many times this year, we'll have that rider in there built in. It's already paid for. So anytime they haul for them, it's automatically extending the limit to cover that, and there you can get to this. What the truck companies don't realize, what you're talking about is contingent cargo. Yes, the broker's contingent cargo does not cover primary in any cargo claim. If that load is released to the truck company, they are now fully responsible per the contract that they sign. I'm not an attorney, have legal look at it, but what you can do as a truck company, and a driver just needs to be educated on this. Hey, this bill of lading says, 300,000, we have 100. We need to get a release of that additional 200,000 back to the broker or the shipper, whoever is like in control of this, and say, okay, you're not responsible for this 200. We just want you to cover 100. Great. We're good to go. Off and running. They just don't realize, people just don't understand. So it's been the same
but again,
for so long.
But that's what's powerful about what you're doing though, Cam, is you're putting that information out there for people to actually learn from. Because I think for the longest time, this industry has been so siloed, it's been so siloed, where I think now, like, that's the beauty of these last couple of years, is the amount of shippers that I have grown friendships with. They're like, I didn't know 90% of what you talk about, and bringing that education to it. I think that's what's lacking out there more than anything, is it's like, why do you need cargo insurance? as a carrier? You know, like why do you need liability? Like, I think breaking all of that down and explaining the why behind it and what it actually covers and what it doesn't, I think is one of the greatest misses out there by people who are trying to sell their services.
Yep.
Explain the why. It's not what can I get off of this on commission? It's like, no. Business owner, trucking company. If you don't have this, like you said, you're gonna have to sell a truck to cover that. Like, nobody is liable for that but you. And explaining that down and breaking that down, that's what's needed, man. Because again, like I had mentioned, dude, I just want to protect the American dream. Like, I'm living the American dream. You are as well, man. You're a business owner. You're out there doing your thing. I want to help other business owners with practical information that who am I to hold back from people? Like, I sat in that seat for 10 years. It's my duty to give that information out there for people.
Yeah. And therein lies the the birth of the freight coach, the Phoenix rises out of the ashes. But it's true though. And that's why I started, this is a passion project, right? I don't get paid. I don't have sponsorship. Not that like it wouldn't help for some of the stuff for marketing stuff, but like I solely do it. And I don't intentionally talk insurance like this. To be honest with you, is probably the most we've even broached insurance as a topic. Because think of it like this. There's a Progressive commercial on right now where the sister of Flo or whatever says, hey, come over and talk to my kid about insurance to put him to sleep. She shuts the door as soon as the kid's asleep. People don't want to listen to it. It's boring to them. But it's my job as a professional. And you kind of pointed it out a little bit as like, you could get a bad rap, and salespeople do get a bad rap, and insurance does unfortunately have a little bit of a negative association with it based on bad performance, lack of education, lack of resources. The ability for a truck company to go buy their own insurance online is great. Hey, I'm all about ease of use and stuff like that, but you have no clue what you're buying. You only find out when you have a claim. When you have the claim, the insurance company is not on your side half the time, and they aren't there to represent you. They're there to represent the contract and determine what it actually says. And if you don't understand that, you're fucked, right? And all of a sudden you got 50, 60 at the best case scenario out of pocket, but then you get accidents that are like super tragic that obviously we all see in the news where it's like XYZ company owes $25 million, right? Great. You can't bankrupt out of all of it. You lose everything, like legit everything like that. And not that we could protect from that, like, you know, but there are best practices that can though, right? When we work with probably like you for the processes and procedures, I find out what's your hiring process. Okay. Do you do a drive test? Okay. What do you do for driver file maintenance? How do you discipline and reprimand people when there is an occurrence? What do you actually do? Because if it's not written and documented, that shit didn't happen. Attorney can eat that up. There's all these things that we come to the table with outside of that. And I find that there's obviously going to be similarities to what you do. And I think that's why obviously I was attracted to listening to your content and respect you, because, you know, I feel like we're cut from a similar cloth as far as what we represent. Passionate about the trucking industry. We rose to a level that is above, like, you know, trying to just sell you to get a commission. I don't. I'll straight up tell a client, like, I'm fortunate I can choose to work with you. I legit can. You almost have to sell me why you should work with us. And are you going to actually be a good client and a good fit and adopt what we're trying to do here, which is ultimately make them better, safer, more profitable, the less downtime. If you're not in a wreck or you don't have accidents and all this kind of stuff, you're on the road more, you're able to make more money ultimately. That's the end goal, right? Deliver something point A to point B in the time that you designate as quick as possible and safely. That's the goal. It's easy.
I think, dude, it's funny you bring that up. Like when I first started like trying to solicit business and everything else on my own and trying to build this up, it was an absolute eye opener to how hard it really is to build a business. And I knew it was going to be challenging, but I think it was more mentally taxing than anything. But what came of it though, is like what you brought up about, the clients and everything else that you've worked with. Like I like a couple of people, after meeting with them and doing a prospecting call, I'm like, hey, I don't think I'm the guy for you. Like, I don't think that what I do is going to be of any value to what you're looking for just based off of that. And then I get more satisfaction. Like, this sounds fucking counterintuitive. I get more satisfaction when they reach back out a couple months later, like, hey, thank you for being ethical. And like, thank you for actually saying that you weren't for us and not just trying to bill us out for a couple grand, and like, I'm just such a firm believer that like karma's real. you know, and if you're out there looking to fuck people over, it's going to come back and it's going to hurt you real bad. But I think like if you're going out there and you're building your business, whether it's a trucking company, a freight brokerage, whatever it is, and you do the right thing is hard. All right. Doing the right thing is very hard, but in the end, it's going to pay off, you know? And then, you know, talking about like what you're doing right now with your podcast, like, dude, I'm so fortunate to have advertisers. I'm so fortunate to have companies that literally are aligned with what I'm trying to do from an education standpoint, that they'll back me financially every single month. I will never forget these individuals who believed in me before anybody else did.
100%.
And, you know, and it's like, and when you're first starting out, and dude, you can resonate that with that as well. Like I'm just coming up on year 2 in business for myself. And the fact that I'm here is fucking wild. And for you, those of you who are watching it, like when I first started, I was recording content on an old laptop in my bedroom through my webcam, and through just consistency, discipline and consistency, I've been able to get like a studio. I rent a place now. I built it out. Yeah. What you guys see now looks vastly different, but 2 years ago, man, I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. All I knew is that I needed to hit record every single day and put stuff out there every single day. And I'm just extremely grateful for what I have. And I'm more grateful for what I've learned about myself and the fact that I know I haven't even scratched the surface of my potential on what I can accomplish.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I feel the same, man. I get excited every time I do these interviews and talk to people and learn about people's journeys and like just the passion that we all share. That is, I guarantee though, you go back through all your content, what hasn't changed is the mission, right?
Yeah.
Your mission's
Yeah,
the same. You just get,
dude,
you got a little fancy, you got kind of bougie
yeah,
with the
got some
sign,
cooler shit, but
cooler shit, but nothing changed though. And I commend you for that. And I think it's showing up. You're right. It's showing up every single day. It's easy to say, it's easy to put on paper.
I
It's easy
know.
to like think about. Doing it, it's a whole different ball game, right? And so I commend you for that. Because yeah, we're coming up, a year will be like summertime
Yeah.
for us, and we had no
Nice.
idea. This evolved from legit kind of like maybe something like you did. Hey, we just need to put out something weekly to talk about, right?
Yep.
Initially it was like, okay, let's talk about insurance, but it's like, that's, it's too granular. We talk about insurance. Like if you find us and you're working with us and we get so many referrals, like thank everybody for the referrals and my existing clients. Like obviously none of this is possible without them. Like I have such a good support system with my wife who is involved
Yeah.
in my business as well. Like I couldn't do it without her and helping with the kiddos. And like, I want to be that example for my kids, right? Like I have a why and a core being of
Yeah.
why I do everything. But this was born out of why and how can I help the trucking industry progress and evolve and get more appealing to the younger generation. All you hear about is the median age of drivers right now being
Yeah.
50 something. It's the same in my industry. How do you get that down? So we work or we like interview organizations that, you know, Next Generation and Trucking Association,
Indeed.
right? Like
Yeah.
they're badass. I love them. Like getting people like that and exposing their mission and what they're doing is going to progress everything. You're right. Autonomous trucking gets a bad rap because you think autonomous, hey, I'm replacing my job. The technology is not going to replace you. It'll enhance you if used correctly. And if you guys, it'll make you safer. There's a bunch of things. You talk about tech in your business. My guess is you're connecting with like Zapier and some automations and like making people's monotonous jobs maybe easier.
Yes.
And I think, dude, I still prospect. I love it, right? At heart,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm a salesperson, but not in a bad way. Like I just want to help people. I feel that
Yeah.
passionate. I'll call people and you'd be amazed how many times the owner answers the phone. It's like, don't you have something better to do? Shouldn't you be running your company? Shouldn't you be doing something with that? And it's like, so I interview people like Ruby, who's a receptionist service, US based, and like they're an extension of your brand. They will legit just answer your phone for you, take a message, be an extension or advocate for you, transfer if need, or take a message. Like people should be putting a value on their time, doing things that are more impactful for their mission, what they actually want to do, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
No, I agree, man. I think that like, I think that's what just keeps me going every single day with this industry is the fact that, you know, yeah, you can talk to the owners of some very successful companies and they're the ones answering the phone. And dude, I'm just, you know, with everything that is evolving in this industry and, you know, I go back and forth on is there a driver shortage? I don't think that there is. I think we need to do a better job of, like you're talking about, recruiting people into this industry because no one's going to come to this industry and save us but us. If you want to see trucking change, you have to change yourself first.
Be the change.
Yeah. And I think that, again, like nobody's coming. Like nobody's coming to fix this but us. I think
you're not going to vote change in. I mean, you can get
hell
help
no, dude.
You can get help, but they're not going to change the day to day, right? But hey, when we had a driver shortage in Pony Express,
yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a rider shortage. There's always a shortage, and it's just never going to end. It's never. But I really don't think there is a shortage. I think there's efficiencies. I think there's storage problems. I think there's port issues for efficiencies of moving the freight at the port out and putting them in locations. And I mean, there's a bunch of things that in the supply chain that can be improved. Obviously, that creates a shortage because I think some things don't work as efficient as they should. I don't have the answers, but people got to start thinking about it, right? So
yeah, I won't put on my tinfoil hat for your
no, it's not
there.
I don't want to steer us that way, but
yeah. I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah, man. What's something cool and exciting in your world coming up? What's something that you want to share for the people to know about, man?
Well, for starters, I just, I've been fortunate to be able to start a second company as well, brokercarrier.com. And that is, we've streamlined the carrier onboarding process. So any broker that's out there that's onboarding carriers, our product, literally, you can have your carriers onboarded in 5 minutes or less. And we have some security measures in place to where they can't just upload any document. They actually have to upload their W-9 authority and their insurance with you listed as a certificate holder. Because as you know, Cam, the only thing that can't be challenged in court is if you have fucking insurance or not. Everything else can be challenged with the right attorney, but your coverages are what they are. And we wanted to have a tool out there because, again, if there's any changes to the policy, I want the broker to be notified of that, not a monitoring service who then might get to you. Because like, again, I'm not here to accuse anybody of anything, but if my load picks up in an hour and I book a carrier, I need to ensure that that carrier's insurance is valid now and not going to lapse or anything like that. And if there is any changes, I directly need to be notified of that. So we've done that. And we've also, the most exciting tool that I'm the most excited about is that carrier reutilization. So we have a load notification tool in there, Cam, where if you're a broker out there and you're booking, say Seattle to LA, now we have a way for you to track the carriers in one singular portal to where you can one-click notify everybody who's done a load for you. And it goes a step further. It's if a carrier is set up with matching equipment type within 50 miles of the shipper or the receiver, it notifies them as well. Because as a broker, you should be using the same trucking companies. You should not be sourcing spot market carriers every single day. This helps you build up your book of business, and that has a direct correlation to your customer and you growing with your customer. And then on top of that, man, dude, just more and more content. You're going to be seeing more and more of a presence of my media stuff because there's just a lot of fun stuff that I'm going to be releasing here. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of details on.
We got to just give little teasers, give it to them. And then
if you thought you saw a lot of me before, you haven't seen anything yet. That's all I'll say.
Man, I love it. And I think you had put out a while back kind of a commitment. I think it was like a declaration to yourself of like, hey, I'm going to amp up my game, right? I feel like I recall seeing that. And then you've held true to it because I'm telling you, like my feed gets blown up on this stuff. So, and I think that's cool on the technology stuff. I feel like we can spend an entire segment on like the adoption, utilization, the value and the benefits. And like that program seems awesome. So I'd love to definitely partner a little bit on that. And like for me, when I get guests on, especially like when I find value in something that somebody does, I want the exposure to my people too, like my clients as well. Like, hey, let's kind of incorporate and fold in if there's a need. I don't puke it all over people, but it's there as like, hey, here's some valuable partnerships that we endorse. Talk to these people if you have these needs, and I think that that's awesome. So
absolutely, man.
Cool, man. Well, that's sweet. Anything else you want to share?
I just just keep making things happen in your business. I just feel like we literally have the greatest industry on earth. We are the American economy at the end of the day. Amen. We are the backbone of the American economy. Without us, like if trucks stop moving, we have a lot bigger fucking problems to worry about at that point. And I just want to see the hardworking men and women of this industry get the respect that they deserve.
Yeah, I think it started to shine some light on it with COVID. I feel like they started to, and like you, I grew up with a family, and my aunt and uncle specifically did like team driving from where I'm at, which is Spokane, Washington, to like Florida. But then pretty much on the downtime, the truck's in the shop and we're in the shop and like tinkering, working, and that's the environment. And when you mention it's a hard job, I do want to thank the truck drivers and the people that sacrifice, because it's a lifestyle, right? It truly is. Like, you love it, it's in your blood, and you sacrifice so much to basically make America move. And like, we couldn't do this without a truck. Everything we've got. So
Amen.
I think that that's amazing. If you had either a statement or some inspiration or a quote that you kind of reference, and you had a billboard that we can just post it to everybody, what would that say? What would you want to get out to the world?
Oh man, that's tough. There's a lot, but I think that the most meaningful thing that I've learned over these last couple of years, again, was the self-reflection, and in the sense that I was the only one stopping me from achieving my goals and going after and doing what I wanted to do with my life. Nobody cared enough about me to like make an effort to stop you. So if you want to make that change in your life, just fucking go for it. Like, literally, you will never be judged by somebody doing more than you. The loudest people judging you for what you want to do are fucking doing less. And that's it. Like, that wasn't really like a tagline, but like, that's just my general sentiment about stuff.
I think that's money, man, because it's so true. It is so true. How do people find you?
You can email me direct, chris@thefreightcoach.com, or if you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, what's the other one? Instagram, just search for the Freight Coach on there and you'll find me. DM me on there. I do my absolute best to get back to as many people as possible in a timely manner. I'll get back to you. Unless you're a Forex trader and you're fucking spamming, like, I'm not going to reply to that.
I know some of these tools for like LinkedIn marketing and stuff. It's like, bro, did you even do some research, or come on, like, did you even like look at what I do?
My favorite one, Cam, dude, my favorite one is my legal business entity is C Jolly Freight Consulting.
Okay.
Somebody asked me, are you happy at C Jolly Freight Consulting, or have you considered a career change? I'm like, you fucking see my name? I am the name.
And no, I'm not happy. So yeah,
I'm not happy. It's your fucking message.
Now I'm pissed. Yeah, I get that too. I get recruiters all the time. It's like, hey, do you want to come sell insurance? Or hey, do you want to? It's like, here's a $60,000 a year job. Blah, blah. It's like, get out of here. Like, do some research, man. Chris, thank you so much, man. I'm so grateful that you came on. I love the journey you're on. I love everything that you're doing. I support you, follow you. And yeah, hopefully this will get out to a little bit broader audience. And yeah, I'd love to collaborate, especially at some conference or whatever, man. Yeah. And likewise, when I get to Phoenix, which I will, because I want to escape some snow and maybe come golf or do something, I'll come look you up. So
absolutely. I appreciate it, Cam. Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you. All right, y'all. That concludes this episode. Remember, we got a Facebook group. Follow us on LinkedIn. You can find this on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher. I don't know, all of them. Follow us. Peace.